success through audience targeting. Fairly straightforward there. This is literally, for those that know Mean Girls, this is You Can't Sit With Us. This is the search marketer's approach to that. I could not think of a funnier, or actually I couldn't think of a better tagline. So that's what we're rolling with on this one. So let's kind of talk about how this conversation is going to flow, since I can't see you all, you can see me, but so I'm going to tell you how we're going to proceed with this. Up front, I'm going to give you some fluff, a little bit of fluff about who I am and where I work. Then we're going to proceed to more fluff about the current clients I work with. The odds are you all probably won't care all that much, but you still want to make sure I have some degree of legitimacy. Lastly, I want to tell you about how search is today, or SEM if you will, is not like yesterday. So those old school folks, those have really been doing this for at least 10 plus years, will sit there, they're going to appreciate it, have a moment of a nostalgia here and there. The rest of you all might even call me a boomer afterwards. It happens. Now, after I've done that, this is the next part here, is where I'm going to get a little bit weird, but a little bit honest. Say, look, you know what? We are losing control. I'm going to explain why. You can take your judgment from there. And then we'll explain from that on why it's important to understand. Now, hopefully by then I haven't lost you, but if that's the case, about here is when you need to start paying attention to the actual presentation. This is where we're going to get into the nitty gritty of the audience targeting, segmentation, why I do it, how I deploy it, and more so, most importantly, how I evaluated success. And then I tell you all in a positive, reassuring way that you can do it as well. Everyone excited? Now, I asked a question. I can't hear anyone, so it doesn't matter. Let's dig in. So the fluff. Who I am, where I work, what I do. So my name is John Kagan. I'm the VP of Search and Biddable Media for 9 Rooftops, aka Cogniscient Media. Cogniscient Media is the digital media operation wing of 9 Rooftops. We are actually a merger of 3 agencies. BLR Further, Mark USA, and BFG Communications that merged together last June to form 9 Rooftops. So that's them. More about me. Agency side, all but 1 year, I did work on the publisher side, working for Forbes.com, doing inbound audience development. I've worked for some other operations. Forbes, I worked in the WPP family with Mediacom, Catalyst, Group M. I've been in the Publicis side with Digitas and Spark. My biggest claim to fame, one of the things I was most proud of prior to coming to my current job, is I helped build our Central American operations for Digitas Search in Costa Rica. I believe it's still going today, but it was a great time. It was an amazing opportunity. It was a non-traditional offshoring operation rather than going to India or China. We used it in Costa Rica solely for the time zone, and it worked out great. My specialty, what I do best when it comes to search marketing, besides just kind of being a loudmouth, I like and specialize in highly regulated industries: pharmaceutical, healthcare, financial services, and various health insurance programs. I enjoy reading government documentation, and I absolutely love red tape because there's nothing that says fast and dynamic like the government. So that is one of my specialties. Do I have any credibility? So in 2013, I became the very first recipient of the Google Search Excellence Award. They gave me this fun little magnifying glass award. It actually sits right here on my desk, so I'll keep that forever. And then, in addition, I've been a 2-time finalist for the Bing, now Microsoft Agency Awards for Optimizer of the Year and Innovator of the Year. 2-time finalist for the OMA Search Innovation Award. Twice, I've been named as one of the most influential search marketers by PPC Hero for 2019 and 2020. My team likes to note to me regularly that, I'm having growth year over year. Thanks, guys. So why am I here? Well, when I first accepted to do this conference, I thought it was in person, and I am so desperate for human contact, like most of us are. Didn't read the fine print, so I'm here, and hopefully we'll do the same. And then a few fun facts about me. Prior to this, I was a firefighter. Got up middle of the night, put out fires, drove a truck with lights. Was doing search marketing simultaneously, and before I moved over to this. I'm a devout fan of the New York Jets. So those in the Metro New York area, the answer is yes. I don't like being happy. My little dirty secret is I'm a huge fan of all the Real Housewives franchises, except for Dallas. But Atlanta is my favorite. And lastly, I have a small flock of chickens because you know what? During a pandemic, that's what you do is you start a small farm. That there is Daisy. That is not a look of me. Oh, I'm so proud of you. She had just bit me, and I'm yelling at her. So that's enough of me. 9 rooftops. We've got offices in Chicago, Boston, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, New York City, Hilton Head, Miami, Baltimore, and Birmingham, plus a lot of field operations around the country. I personally am a field office, which is a nice way of saying I've always worked from home down in Stamford, Connecticut. Anyone in Connecticut, hit me up. We'll get a drink. Cogniscient Media is largely the media brand of 9 Rooftops. We do everything on the sun. The reality is 9 Rooftops is a full service digital or full service marketing agency. We do traditional, we do online digital, PR, creative in-house. You name it, we do it. Some of the clients that I work on, Alcosan, which is out of the greater Pittsburgh area. Some of you may know Bell Tire, Belgium, BSN. Those who like burritos, Qdoba is one of our big ones. And we kind of cover it. This is just a small sample, but some of the ones you may have heard of and may actually enjoy what you're thinking about. All right. So let's get into the nitty gritty of things. So this is where I talk about today's search market and how it is not the same as your grandpa, although I doubt there's that many grandpas in the space at this point, given over the year. How is it different and how it's changed over the years? So there is an inspirational quote that I find about our industry that's in a well-known song. I believe it's a well-known song, at least it's well-known to me. And when I think about the artist, I cannot think of a different way for her to have better encapsulated the transition of not just the search engine marketing, but digital marketing in a single quote and to help relate to the audience and the masses in a way that I can only hope the rest of society has really adopted. That, of course, is Miss Cardi B. And we can all remember, so don't get comfortable. Look, I don't dance now. I make money moves from her song Bodak Yellow. Some folks think this has a variety of other meanings, but we all actually know that the real true meaning of this song, and specifically that line, is the adjustment and evolution of digital marketing, specifically search engine marketing, from what it once was to what it is now, in a goal to ignore those who are advocating as gurus to us into what is now considered a more effective strategy. This is a virtual look at my head of HR, Danielle, who realized she did not approve this presentation or that slide or the following it, and will probably have my head after this conversation. But until then, let's get back to Cardi B. Oh, one thing I will note for this, if you all like this, hate this, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. It's down in the bottom right corner, where you can send additional questions or just complain and mock me. Your choice. So let's break down the original statement. So don't get comfortable. Look, I dance now. I don't dance now. I make money moves. So first we look at it. So don't get comfortable. This is a direct association for the search engine marketing industry, and how it's largely driven by Google and the consolidation of Bing, because I refuse to call them Microsoft, and Yahoo, and how it's changed so dramatically in the 20 years, and how you can no longer think that what you did back then is relevant or as relevant today. Honestly, I've been doing this for about 16 years, and nearly every approach and tactic I've done 16 years ago, while it may have been the best in the business back then, is almost of no value today. And so we've had to dramatically change things. And though obviously that's what Cardi's talking about. Look, I don't dance now. This is her way of saying, look, I'm no longer listening to that really, really, really annoying marketing guru that pops up on your Facebook feed. Don't act like you don't get those. You see at least 3 a day saying, I'm going to increase your ROI by 10,000% with some dirty little secret that Google doesn't want you to know. We all get those if you're on this feed. They most commonly advocate for redundant and antiquated approaches to search engine marketing. Just like these jerks that get up at conferences and start getting in front of large crowds and start advocating for weird stuff as well. Only difference is I'm kind of funny. At least I'd like to believe so. This is her saying, I'm no longer listening to them. I'm no longer following this dance that they've always promoted. I'm going my own way. And lastly, I make money moves. This is her statement saying, I have adjusted my search engine marketing strategies to be an audience-first focus in an effort to drive the most efficient and prosperous results. This is her way of saying, look, I saw the change on it coming. I saw it on the horizon. I've now turned over and changed and said, you know what? I'm going to take better control. Not everyone needs to see my ads, so not everyone's going to get my ads, so I don't have to spend it on the less relevant and less qualified consumer. Excuse me. So let's chug along, shall we? Let's get stuck. So yes, Cardi was right. As mentioned earlier, when I started the space 16 years ago, things are dramatically different. I started my career at didit.com in 2005 in Rockville, Long Island, New York. We were one of maybe 20 agencies in the world at that time. And the concept of freelancer search marketing wasn't even really hitting its degree. How much have things changed? I now live in Stamford, Connecticut. There's 19 different agencies and known freelance independent contractors that do the same thing. So yeah, it's grown a bit. But also remember, when I got into the space, a lot of you all did back then, Yahoo Overture, not Panama, because that was a dumpster fire, not Gemini, because that was a second dumpster fire, but the original platform, Yahoo Overture, which they had purchased, was my main source of search marketing advertising. I was also buying AOL directly. I was buying Ask.com, and I back to Ask G. We were also dealing with platforms like 7Search, ePilot. It really goes down the list of platforms. Odds are a lot of you have never even heard of or cared of before. But that's how different the space was. Google was I think it was probably my number 3 platform at the time. Look at it now. It's about 80% of the search marketing space in the US. Bid jamming is gone. If you want to know what bid jamming is, or are really curious to know, so the early Yahoo Overture platform actually showed you what the top 5 ads were bidding of your competitors. And you could decide if you wanted to drive up their costs, you would bid up to a penny below what they were bidding, and it would actually drive up their CPCs. This was an amazing thing for advertisers. That went the way of old Yeller probably in 07, 08 maybe. Yeah, now we have no transparency of what our competition is doing. Is all theorized. This actually was telling us. Yeah, it's a little. Excuse me. It is a little scary. We're operating in a time when the smallest operations, that SMB, that freelancer, that mom and pop pizza shop down the street, has the same strategy and approaches as any major enterprise. You know, that's great for those mom and pop small operations. What that does mean is it's a bit of a bigger problem for the enterprise ones, because I now have small entities that normally don't come up on our radar causing trouble for us, driving up our costs, diverting traffic, whether or not they need it or not. This is one of these scenarios where there's no longer a deviation or separation between big players and small players. It's all unified. So the first step to starting to survive this in these wider groups having the same capabilities, saying, all right, I need to reduce my audience focus. I need to start saying not everyone is right. So this is why I need to start building in the audience functionality. And this probably started, earliest memory I have is about 2013. And this is going beyond the device targeting. This is going beyond geographic targeting. This is when we can start saying like remarketing audiences, and before even affinity audiences even started. And this for search was the RLSA program. So yeah, about 2012, 2013 is what I recall. It might have been a little bit earlier. But we need to start accepting these areas to be a new line of focus for us, so that we can so that we can survive and eventually flourish. And if you don't like The Office and you don't know who that is, then you're probably not going to enjoy a lot of the following slides. Give a moment for everyone to laugh. There we go. So now I'm going to put on that little bit of a tinfoil hat and tell you all why we're losing control, why it makes me angry, and that you should all be fearful. Love those things. The robots are coming for our job. Yes. Are they good at it? Nope, not at all. And I understand this sounds crazy, but we're continuing to see a movement away from manual bid strategies, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. We're also seeing a movement away from ad copy development. And most importantly, keywords themselves. We're seeing areas of advertising that are no longer keyword driven, whether it's Yelp, smart campaigns, PLAs or shopping campaigns. The list goes on and on and on. And as the engines have taken on more of the optimization ad copy development, and let's be honest, no one wants them to do it because we don't all want to do the recommendations. They're not always great recommendations. They're really easy to do. We must then realize that if we're going to thrive or survive, we need to start taking charge of what we can still control to make it as cost efficient as possible. And to do that, I'm going to say it again and again and again, audience targeting. Hold for laughter. There we go. So the next slides are important. I figured at this point, some of you all have gotten annoyed, bored, stopped paying attention, might even be in the bathroom or swiping left on Tinder at the moment. Giving you about 5 more seconds to pay attention. This is Violet. She's also from my flock. She is the most huggable chicken. Good. All right, let's get back into paying attention. Now remember, the next part is the important stuff and the real meat of the presentation. So it's a good time to focus again. So let's talk about audience targeting. WTF, what is audience targeting? So the best way I can explain audience targeting, because it's more than just a simplistic statement. It's imagine you're one of those FBI profilers from Criminal Minds and you have access to website tracking pixels. It's a great combination of those two things. No, audience targeting is not just remarketing. It is a subset of it, but it is not the only part to it. A proper audience targeting is the idea trying to identify through your website data the ideal consumer. Who do you wish to show your ads to? And once you have identified, you need to lean in and very heavy on them with messaging, bidding, all sorts of that, and segmenting them out. Now, you're probably wondering, why do I need to borrow with this when I can just do remarketing? The reality is you need to start looking at a prospecting scenario for those who haven't been to your site but still meet a certain degree of pre-qualification. A perfect example here is a mock-up that I have targeting specific ages, gender, geography, device, behavioral session limits, and what pages they visit, coming in on a certain source of traffic typically. We take those audience targets and we overlay them on our campaigns, so that those falling within the audiences get shown ads with certain ads specifically, and others do not. And we can do this pretty simply via pixels. Pixels in a little of these. Your Google Ads remarketing pixel, your Google Analytics pixel, which I am the biggest advocate for, and then the Bing UET pixel, or Microsoft, whatever you want to call it these days. So who is right and how do I pull them in? So there's about 5 different audiences you should be reaching. There's typically 5. There's some more or less. The group your data tells you is your consumer. This is usually your MRI, your offline data, your surveys. The group you think your consumer is, saying this is who I want to sell to, and you're talking to the CMO or someone else in sales. The group you want to be your customer. This could be the same as 1 and 2. It could be different. Your current customer. This is the ones that are frequently making purchases that you have gained substantial data on. This is typically your online data. And then the rest of modern society as we know it. Like I said, not everyone is right. Not everyone is proper for you, which is why targeting them individually for reporting purposes is so important. But to each one helps serves a purpose. Reaching the non-brand aware are in market, reaching the competitor loyal that are in market, reaching the qualified ads, re-engaging with the current customer, and just flat out prospecting. They each serve a different purpose. Sometimes they serve more than one purpose, but they at least serve one. So if they don't serve at least one purpose, then you don't need to show your ad to them. People ask for an example like that. Most common one I have is I use my 9-year-old daughter's email. Her age is set for 9 in her Google profile. So she searched up fancy cars. And you know what? She searched fancy cars by. This is a 9-year-old with a Google profile. Why she's being served a Lexus ad, or why she's being served a Budweiser ad or a Sam Adams ad doesn't make sense. She is not a qualified audience, so therefore she should not be seeing this type of stuff. And therefore, my daughter went click. They cost each one of these advertisers 25 cents to $1, maybe even more. That could have been reallocated to a more qualified individual and better performance in the long run. So, when you're trying to decide who's right, here's my favorite statement. I didn't create this quote. I don't know who does, but it did, but it is very relevant. Don't bring your feelings to a data fight, which means going with a gut feeling is cute and all might be good when you're trying to select dinner, but when you're trying to use millions upon millions of dollars of ad budget, use your data before you start going with that gut feeling. Plain and simple. A new startup that has done zero market research, then you must turn to your historical data that you can identify within the vertical space, or purchase data that is relevant for your space. Don't just go with your gut feeling unless you're a startup. Simple as that. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad day. If you do have access to a robust CRM system, start with that. First-party data is my favorite kind of data, and it should be yours. This is the more information you have within your CRM system for when you get them to sign up for the email list or when you get them to make purchases, the better, because you can start building more and more information like that, and then going and build those custom audiences in Facebook, in Criteo, in Trade Desk, or within Google itself. And then you start building these outward and just make sure it's targeting those who have not been to the site before. Use your site analytics. The easy one to start with, your geography, your demographics, your device. Once you get past that, which you can find in the engine UIs, you start going a little bit wider. You start going for more granular source of geography, affinities in behavior. Are they avid investors? Are they 30-minute chefs? Do they like to eat out frequently? Start looking at all this data. Once you've done that, you can use it to build audience segmentations. Once you've been using that audience segmentation, you can start building out more and more lookalike audiences. Just cute little examples. No such thing as too many audience builds. And by the way, I do see that there's at least one question. I'll get to it towards the end. Apologies. No such thing as too many audience builds. You can have as many audiences as your heart desires. Go nuts. But keep in mind, if you cut that data too granularly, it might not have anybody on it, and so might not serve a purpose for you. Unless your site is incredibly high volume, try and keep the audience layers to no more than 3. The creation is fairly intuitive. Google and Bing, their UIs have make it really readily available for audience segmentation creation. It's just a matter of, do you have the audiences set up and do you want to do it? Google Analytics, you have to import that into Google. It is a bit trickier to do. It's not as intuitive, but honestly, I prefer that for Google because there's so many more triggers to operate off. And the nice part is I can then import that into Google Ads and combine that with other audience segments from within or data within Google Ads and combine it together to make a more unique audience. And honestly, as long as anytime you're looking at for anything about more than site visits from Google Ads, then you should be using GA or Google Analytics. Just cute little examples of me sitting there toiling through constant amounts of data and scratching my head. Once again, The Office. Hope you like it. So using the audience targets, the engines make it this easy to do. Usage is between the engines and GA, and deployment is slightly different, but no matter what it sits in your audience, your shared audience folder, you just take it, you apply it to your ad groups, or you apply it to your campaigns. After the audience, you need to make set the logical. So if you are targeting, then you break out the audiences. Either you break the campaigns or ad groups out by audience. If it's just an observational, then you can leave them honestly in the same ad groups as all the other ones, and just make it so that you're observing the data, or if you want to bid modify. Once again, isolate the audiences either at the campaign or ad group level. Exclude the target. So this is very important. So if I'm building an audience of people, I'm looking for new people to the site that are, say, wheels and tire enthusiasts. So I'm going to target that, but what I'm also going to exclude is people that have visited the site before, say, within the last 30 days as the excluded audience. That way I'm not serving people that are already brand aware or brand visitor or brand engaged. And you can do this with a variety of things, not just site visits. Then you start deciding what is the appropriate message. Each audience is different. You talk to each audience differently. So a couple examples here. These are some mock-ups we did for different clients. We did a dinner idea for a food delivery upper right. So we were targeting men. So we did, or fathers specifically. So we targeted fathers in charge of dinner, age 25 to 34, and did this ad copy. Then we did another one where it's mothers in charge of dinner, not age specific. So therefore, we're not calling them millennial, that have been before. And so it's very, very important that you have the right messaging with the right audience. It will improve performance along the way for you. So do you have an idea or got an audience? Let's use it. The engines do make this easy. But the key is to make sure if you are trying to get specific performance and optimize to specific, more so budget allocate specifically by audience, you need to make sure the set is to targeting in Google or target and bid in Bing. Straightforward. Measuring the audiences versus the general audiences with the same metric is fine. It's good for setting baseline. But the reality is you should have a high, if you know an audience is more qualified than the general population, you should have a different standard for it. You should set a different standard, a different level of KPIs for it. Maybe it's a higher CTR or a better CPC or a better conversion rate. Not all audiences are alike, so don't treat them necessarily alike. And if you fail to do any of this along the way, honestly, you did a whole lot of work and you just kind of bungled it. That's just a reality. You blew it. I will note we have a few more slides to go. Time is tight, so I will go through this a little bit faster, but please make sure you ask questions along the way, and I will hop into it at the end. So let's evaluate the effort. So you did this work. Now you need to decide if it's working. Your KPI and your success, your KPI or measure success, or at least it should be, differ from the primary audiences as mentioned earlier. It is important not to confuse or disregard the aggregate campaign points. Yes, you're trying to get to an ultimate goal, but I always recommend look at the audiences separately, but don't let it say, all right, it was successful here, but overall it was bad, or vice versa. Overall it was bad, but only successful or poor here. Make sure you take it in both perspectives because you are working to a common good. Depending on what you did, will decide how you gauge your success. So separation remarketing audiences. Is it the CTR, conversion rate, and the CPA more efficient than the others? More importantly, are you now able to decide whether you should be dedicating your fund to one specific audience versus the other one? So a separation of top engagements at a demographic. Are you able to continue to garner the bulk of post-click production from this audience? If so, do you need to be spending on the general population anymore? So isolation of new visitors. Do these still provide a bulk of traffic and can they reproduce at a profitable rate? So basically what I'm saying is you've targeted out the audience. You've proved out one is better than the other. Can you survive with just targeting this isolated audience or not going forward? Or is that too small? And you just have to do it in a situation where you're isolating out one group from the other and doing different budget line allocations. So the answer isn't honestly a yes or a no. It's very subjective and it always depends on a bigger picture for you. So I'm going to show you a live example of data of a project that we did. This is an auto accessory brand. When we first came into it, there was no audience separation. It is believed that the more qualified consumer performance or more qualified consumers, that they were being cannibalized by the general audience. So we went and set up a scenario where we broke out the general audience versus what we consider to be in-market consumers that had not been with the site before. And then what we said was, all right, we're going to give separate budget lines. We did this at the campaign level. One gets one budget, one gets the other. What will the aggregate performance be? Primary hypothesis is the audiences would allow for an aggregate cost per lead, better aggregate cost per lead, and generate more leads in total for us. And theoretically, we wouldn't lose volume, but we could reallocate the funding better so it'd be more cost efficient and generate more post-click production for us. A secondary hypothesis was, all right, I bet you we're getting so much traffic and so many leads from the in-market audience, we could probably dump the general audience. How did it go? 20-week pre-separation versus 20-week audience separation. Keep in mind, the biggest thing was we separated the audiences and we changed the budget shifting. So what happened when we did it? The separation allocations for better allocation. We actually spent less and we got less traffic during that process. What we did note, though, is our click-through rate increased about 25%. Our CPC did go up about 4%, not a huge amount, but it did nonetheless go up. But here's the biggest kicker. Our conversion rate, or our lead rate, if you went almost double, 16.85% over 9.21%. Our cost per lead dropped from $27.22 to $15.49. However, the downside was, so we confirmed that it became more cost efficient. We could keep spending, keep the budget allocations or the audiences separate, and they were being cannibalized. But what we also learned is we still get enough volume from the general audience that we could not abandon and walk away from because we were still losing a good chunk of leads. While It's about 500 in those two scenarios. While not everyone considers that a good chunk, every dollar counts. So primary hypothesis was confirmed. Separation of the budgets does lead to better cost efficiency. But the secondary hypothesis was we could not abandon our general population. So I've just said a lot in a very, very fast period of time. I do apologize. I didn't think I was going to take this long to do it. I know you guys are going to have 20 questions, but the reality is anyone can do this. If you have common sense and an account log, it really doesn't take much. Seriously, if you can't figure it out, then you're probably overthinking it. The creation development of audience in search is really fairly simple to do. You're going to feel panicked. You're going to mess it up. You do feel like you're going to create a new ice age by a mistake. Don't worry, you won't. Here are the key things to remember when you're building this as you do this and roll this strategy out. Use the data to tell me who I should target. Don't go off your gut feeling. Make sure you have a separation of audience targets along the way. Have an aggregate KPIs and an audience-specific KPI. And yes, everyone does this. Everyone that's worth their weight within the industry does this to one degree or another, and those who aren't doing it right. And it is not a set and forget. I cannot stress this enough. This is not a set it and forget it mentality. This is not a set it and forget it approach. You have to continuously optimize and monitor this performance every single day. Thank you for sitting through this. I know I said a lot in a short period of time. If you've got questions, feel free to reach out to me via email. It's jkagan@advertisers.com. Or easier, if you want to hurl insults and slurs like most folks do with me, just tweet me at John Kagan. Now, I know there was some questions that I can see.
Came from Cisco. What can startups do to gather information on the ideal consumer data?
There are third parties that you can purchase data from. My favorite thing, and usually the cheapest thing to do, is honestly get a subscription to eMarketer and pull out that data. You can also, there's a lot of various Google tools. They aren't the most accurate, but they can give you demographic understandings of certain consumers. Bing, Microsoft actually has a great tool that changes bio vertical.
Okay. How about, great answer. Here's one from Tandy. How does this apply to multifamily apartment housing?
So that in the question, so there is the HEC policy on Google, which is a little bit more frustrating because you can't do necessarily household income targeting, but that's the most common one. So the simple one on this is you're going to look for people that are in market audience that are typically not home owners, and those that are looking to make a move, either often coming from recent employment, changing jobs transitions, or relocating to an area. So start finding those affinities, and that's going to be your target audience to work with until you can build up enough data to create a lookalike.
So here's a great question that a friend of mine also has. This came from Megan or Megan. Apologies, I still don't know which one it is, but she says, asking for advice for a medium large B2B firm's first digital marketer. Love this question. We have limited data due to poor historical data collection or in a very niche industry. So any advice on where to start for SEM would be great. I love this question because it's so true for so many people out there, especially in the startup world.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, there's no single right answer for this one. There's a lot of different approaches to it you can take. If you have historical data, there's always something you can glean onto it. So make sure you scrape the bottom of the barrel for that one. If you can use active current data, and it'll always depend on the volume from there. But in this scenario, this is a very unique one, and I've been in this situation myself, is go ask others, people within the industry, how their approaches are. And honestly, and I don't mean go look for documentation, like literally reach out to industry experts. I receive a call like this probably once every 2 weeks of people ask me these questions, and it's very dependent on the vertical itself. So unfortunately, there's no single right answer. The best answer I can always give you is reach out to individuals within the space and talk it out with them, and they might have a better answer for you. If you want to reach out to me, go right ahead.
Great point. Yeah, definitely reach out to John after this. So, John, thank you so much for joining us today. Really enjoyed the session. It's fantastic. So,
absolutely. Thank you very much.
Have a great afternoon.